My name is Elena Hart. I was 32 years old when I learned that humiliation does not always happen by accident. Sometimes it is rehearsed. Sometimes it is timed with dessert. Sometimes the people smiling across the table already know exactly where the knife is going to land. And sometimes, the man you love is the one holding it. I was a fire protection systems engineer in Nashville. Sprinklers, suppression systems, emergency alarms, evacuation layouts, the kind of work most people never think about unless something catches fire and their life depends on whether someone like me did the math right. It was not glamorous work, but it was honest,
Precise.
useful. I liked knowing that if I did my job correctly, strangers would make it out of burning buildings without ever knowing my name. That used to be enough for me.
A steady career.
Decent savings. A small circle of people I trusted. And Caleb Monroe. Caleb was my boyfriend. 3.5 years. Long enough for his shampoo to live in my shower. Long enough for his mother to call me family when she needed help setting up her new phone. Long enough for me to think the quiet routines between us meant something solid. We met at a Titans tailgate. He had just finished a graphic design program and was doing freelance branding for boutiques, coffee shops, lifestyle startups, anything with mood boards and expensive fonts. Caleb had that magnetic kind of charm that made people lean toward him without realizing they were doing it. He could walk into a room and rearrange the air. At first, I thought that was confidence. Later, I realized it was hunger. The first year was good, or at least it looked good from the inside. My Germantown apartment, Thai takeout on Friday nights, Caleb barefoot in my kitchen, sketching logos on napkins while I reviewed system layouts on my laptop. He would rest his chin on my shoulder and say, "You make buildings safe. I just make things pretty." I used to laugh at that. I thought he was proud of me. Looking back, I think he liked how useful I was. After 18 months, we moved in together. Caleb wanted the Gulch. Luxury high-rise, rooftop pool, smart home system, floor-to-ceiling windows, valet trash, all of it. I wanted reasonable. He won. Rent was $2,800 before parking. I covered 60% because his freelance income swung wildly. Some months he made $3,000, other months $800. I never made it a thing. I told myself partnership meant carrying each other through uneven seasons. Caleb told people we were building a life. I believed him. His friend group came as a package. Jordan was the ringleader, always filming, always narrating life like it was content. Madison was the echo, the one who laughed first and loudest. Riley worked in finance and treated everyone like a bad investment. Paige called herself emotionally intuitive, which mostly meant she weaponized therapy language whenever someone disagreed with her. They traveled in a pack.
Loud. Polished. Performative.
My parents never clicked with Caleb. My mom noticed he rarely asked me questions unless other people were watching. My dad went quiet after Caleb mocked my old truck and called it aggressively practical. They never told me not to marry him. They did not have to. Caleb's parents were different. Diane worshipped him. To her, Caleb was misunderstood brilliance wrapped in expensive linen shirts. Greg, his father, mostly nodded and paid for whatever Diane said Caleb needed. And then there was Violet, Caleb's younger sister. Quiet. Overlooked. Treated less like a daughter and more like an unpaid assistant who happened to share their last name. By year 3, I had saved for a ring. Not because Caleb expected me to propose. At least, I did not think he did. But he had joked about it enough times. "You're the engineer," he said once, smiling over wine. "You like plans. Maybe you should plan the proposal too." So I did. Cushion-cut diamond, yellow gold, hidden halo. $9,000. It took 6 jewelers to find the right one. The plan was to propose at his birthday month dinner in April at Husk, the southern restaurant he had been obsessed with for almost a year. He invited his 4 friends and both families. A proper celebration, he called it. It seemed perfect. Everyone important to him in one place.
Dessert.
Then the proposal. I showed up early, confirmed everything with the server, tipped her in advance, checked the ring box at least 6 times in the bathroom mirror. Caleb arrived 20 minutes late with his entourage. He looked like he was walking a red carpet. Cream jacket, gold watch, hair styled just enough to look effortless. My parents sat quietly. His parents showered him with praise. Violet slipped in last, almost unnoticed, taking the chair nearest the wall like she was trying not to take up space. Dinner went exactly the way dinners with Caleb usually went. His friends were loud. Diane praised him for being in such a creative transition. Caleb made jokes about being between projects and needing a muse with better taste than deadlines. Everyone laughed. I smiled because that was what I had learned to do. I kept touching the ring box in my pocket. Dessert was supposed to be my moment. What happened instead was something else entirely. Phones were already up around the table. Jordan filming openly. Madison snapping clips. Paige pretending she was not recording while angling her phone toward me. Jordan stood first, glass raised, smile sharp enough to cut skin. "Okay, everyone," she said loudly. Nearby tables turned. "I want to make a toast to Caleb's birthday month celebration." Everyone raised their glasses. I started to relax. Just a toast. Then dessert. Then my moment. "But first," Jordan continued, eyes sliding toward me, "I think someone here has something they want to say." My stomach tightened. "Elena," she said, still filming, "you've been looking nervous all night. Want to share what's in your pocket?" The table went silent. Caleb looked at me. Not surprised. Not confused. Waiting. His friend smiled. My parents looked startled. Diane leaned forward like she had paid for front row seats. Greg stared down at his plate. Violet froze, with her fork halfway to her mouth. I stood slowly. My hand moved to the box. "Oh my God," Madison shrieked right on cue. "Is she going to propose?" "Finally," Riley said, voice dripping with something mean. Diane leaned toward Caleb, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Honey, are you sure about this? I mean, she's been nice and all, but you could do so much better. You shouldn't settle just because she's been around." The words hit so hard, I forgot how to breathe. My mother's face went red. My father's jaw tightened. I pulled out the box anyway. Opened it. The ring caught the restaurant light. For 1 second, everything went completely still. Then Caleb laughed. Not nervous. Not overwhelmed. Mocking. The kind of laugh someone gives something pathetic. "Look at her," he said, loud enough for half the restaurant to hear. "She actually thinks I'm going to marry her." Jordan's phone stayed up. Madison joined the laughter. Riley shook her head like I had embarrassed myself by existing. Paige tilted her face into fake sympathy. "Caleb, babe," Paige said, "maybe we should talk about this privately." "Why?" Caleb said. "Everyone here was going to find out eventually." He turned back to me. "Elena, seriously, did you really think this was going somewhere?" I stood there with the ring box open. My hands did not shake. That surprised me. "I mean, look around," he said. "You can barely afford this place without stressing about it for weeks. You drive a 10-year-old truck. You work a job most people don't even understand. What exactly did you think you were bringing to the table?" Riley laughed. "Bringing to the table. Good one." My mom started to speak, but my dad touched her arm. "Not yet." "Elena," Caleb said, performing now, "what are you going to say? That you love me? That we're good together?" His smile flattened. "You were a placeholder. You've always been a placeholder. I was just waiting for the right time to upgrade." I closed the ring box. The click sounded louder than the laughter. Our server stood frozen a few feet away, tray in hand, eyes wide. She had seen everything. So had half the restaurant. I looked at Caleb for 1 long second. Then I said, "Enjoy your dinner." I turned to my parents. "Let's go." We walked to the server station together. The server followed, pale and shaken. "Ma'am," she said quietly, "I'm so sorry. I've never seen anything like that." "Not your fault," I said, pulling out my wallet. Can you split the check? Just charge my card for the three of us. I nodded toward my parents. They can figure out the rest themselves. She processed it quickly. My father stood beside me, one hand on my shoulder. Behind us, Caleb's voice grew louder. She can't take a joke. She's being dramatic. She embarrassed me on my birthday. The server handed me the receipt. If you ever need someone to confirm what happened tonight, she said softly, my name is Rachel. The manager has my contact information. I looked at her. Thank you. My mother touched my arm, but did not speak. We walked out past tables full of people pretending not to stare. Past the hostess stand. Out into the Nashville night. The air felt too clean. In the parking lot, my mother finally said, come stay with us tonight. I need to get my stuff first. Then we'll follow you, my father said. Not a question.
A fact.
We drove in convoy back to the high-rise. My phone lit up the entire way. Texts. Calls. Voicemails. Unknown numbers. I did not look at any of them. The apartment was dark when we got there. Caleb was still at the restaurant, probably turning my humiliation into a story he could survive. I did not waste time. My father grabbed my work equipment and clothes. My mother packed essentials, bathroom items, my parents' framed photo, a few books. 40 minutes. 3 trips. 3.5 years fit into the back of my truck. I left everything we bought together.
Furniture.
Dishes. Smart speakers. The $600 espresso machine Caleb insisted made us look more adult. I took only what was mine. Tools. Gym bag. Hard hat. Safety vest. Before walking out, I shut everything down. Removed my access from the smart home system. Changed every password. Screenshotted a month of texts, rent requests, money complaints, little insults disguised as jokes. Saved everything to the cloud. Then I sent Caleb one message. Do not contact me again. I muted his number instead of blocking it. Clean evidence. No noise. My parents followed me to an extended stay hotel in Brentwood. I did not sleep. At 3 a.m, I turned my phone back on. 87 texts. 32 missed calls. Mostly unknown numbers. I screenshotted everything. Saved it. Then blocked his entire circle. By Monday morning, the story had already started changing. Jordan posted first. I did not watch it. Ryan from work called me instead. Elena, he said, voice tight. You need to see this. I'm not on my real Instagram anymore. He's saying you proposed out of nowhere, that you'd been pressuring him for months, that he had to reject you publicly because you wouldn't take no for an answer in private. My jaw locked. That's a lie. I know, Ryan said. But it's getting traction. His friends are backing him up. They're making you sound controlling and desperate. Send me screenshots. He did. Jordan's original post. Madison's comments. Riley's smug little additions. Paige writing paragraphs about boundaries and emotional coercion. Caleb was not posting directly, but he liked every comment that painted me as unstable. I saved all of it. That was the first habit I built after Caleb Monroe tried to ruin me. I documented everything. Every contact attempt. Every message. Every threat. Every lie. Because my father was right. People like Caleb did not handle consequences well. And somewhere, under the shock, under the humiliation, under the image of that ring shining uselessly in a restaurant full of strangers, one cold thought kept repeating in my mind. This was not over. Not even close. The first thing I learned after public humiliation is that silence makes people nervous, especially people who expect you to beg. By Tuesday morning, Caleb's entire circle was waiting for me to explode online, to post crying videos, to defend myself in comment sections, to write paragraphs about betrayal and heartbreak so they could dissect my emotions frame by frame. I did none of it. I went to work. And somehow, that made them angrier. My office sat just outside downtown Nashville in a low glass building shared with 3 engineering firms. Most people there were practical, exhausted, caffeine-dependent adults who cared more about deadlines than gossip. Which was why the email from HR hit me like a punch to the ribs. Subject: request for immediate meeting. My stomach dropped the second I saw it. I called my supervisor before I even finished reading. "Mark," I said, already grabbing my keys. "What's going on?" There was a pause, then a sigh. "Someone sent an anonymous complaint to HR and the partners," he said carefully. "Claims you've been unstable at work, aggressive with coworkers, mentions some kind of public incident over the weekend." I closed my eyes. Of course they did. "Are you serious?" "I know it sounds ridiculous," Mark replied, "but protocol says we have to document it. HR wants to meet this afternoon." "I'm bringing evidence." "Good," he said immediately. "And Elena?" "Yeah?" "I already told them I've never once had an issue with your professionalism." That almost broke me more than the humiliation had. Not because it was dramatic, because it was kind. I spent the next 3 hours building folders. Screenshots of Caleb's texts asking me for rent money. Messages where he mocked my work schedule while depending on my income. Call logs from the night of the proposal. Social media posts reframing what happened. Fake concern. Coordinated lies. Everything neatly printed and tabbed. If they wanted documentation, I would give them documentation. The HR director was a woman named Cynthia, with silver glasses and the expression of someone permanently tired of other people's messes. She read everything slowly. Very slowly. Mark sat beside me in silence while I explained the proposal, the public humiliation, the coordinated online attacks, and the anonymous complaint that had appeared immediately afterward. "I believe," I said carefully, "that my ex-boyfriend and his friends are retaliating because I left the relationship." Cynthia flipped through screenshots from Jordan's Instagram story. Then Madison's comments. Then Riley calling me emotionally manipulative. Then Paige writing an entire fake therapy analysis about my obsession with control. Finally, Cynthia looked up. "Have any of these individuals attempted to contact this office directly?" "Not yet." "If they do, notify us immediately." "I will." She folded her hands together. "And Elena?" "Yes?" "You are not in trouble." The pressure in my chest loosened so suddenly, it almost hurt. "We're going to document this as targeted harassment," she continued. "If this escalates, we want a paper trail." Already planning on it, I thought. I left work exhausted, but steadier. One small win. One official record. One more layer between me and whatever Caleb planned next. That night, my phone rang from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Then another. And another. The 4th voicemail finally made me listen. "Elena," Diane's voice said dramatically, "this situation is getting completely out of hand." I leaned back against the hotel bed and stared at the ceiling while she continued. "Caleb is devastated. He didn't mean what he said. He was overwhelmed by the pressure of a public proposal. You know how emotional he gets."
Emotional.
That was one word for it. "I think the 2 of you need to sit down and discuss this privately, like adults. He's willing to forgive you for embarrassing him at the restaurant if you're willing to admit you moved too fast. Forgive me." I replayed that sentence 3 times just to make sure I had heard it correctly. Then I saved the voicemail. No response. 2 days later, Greg called. His voicemail sounded nothing like Diane's. "Elena," he said quietly. "It's Greg." Long pause. I wanted to apologize for what happened at dinner. What Caleb said, what Diane said, it wasn't right. Another pause. I should have spoken up. His voice sounded tired. Smaller, somehow. You know how Diane gets. And Caleb, he's always been able to convince people things are someone else's fault. I sat very still, listening. "Look, I'm not making excuses," he continued. "I just wanted you to know, Not everyone in the family thought what happened was okay. Then softer. But I can't go against them publicly. That sentence told me everything I needed to know about their family. Greg knew the truth. He just lacked the courage to stand inside it. I saved his voicemail too. Not because I planned to use it, because it explained Caleb better than any insult ever could. I found an apartment in East Nashville a week later. Nothing fancy. Older complex. Off-street parking. Tiny gym that smelled faintly like dust and rubber mats. Rent, $11.50. For the first time in months, I could breathe financially without calculating Caleb's half in my head. My parents helped me move. My mom bought me dishes and towels like I was leaving for college again. She kept asking if I was okay. I kept saying yes. We both knew I was lying. Work became the only thing that made sense. Hotel development near the airport. Complex fire suppression system. Long hours. Tight deadlines. Math did not care about heartbreak. Sprinkler layouts did not care about betrayal. And honestly, that felt comforting. Ryan started inviting me to the gym after work. He had survived a brutal divorce a few years earlier and understood the strange numbness that follows public embarrassment. He never pushed me to talk. Sometimes we just lifted weights in silence. Sometimes that silence saved me. I returned the ring in early May. Store credit. $9,000 sitting in an account for a future that no longer existed. The jeweler looked uncomfortable the entire transaction. I appreciated that he did not ask questions. The harassment evolved after that. Burner numbers. Anonymous messages. You embarrassed him. You owe Caleb an apology. Real women don't propose without knowing the answer. Not once did Caleb message directly. Which meant one thing. He was orchestrating it. I archived every message. Blocked every number. Built folders by date. Then came the gifts. Flowers with no signature. Expensive coffee baskets. A whiskey set delivered to my office. Everything designed to look romantic. Everything feeling like surveillance. I refused all deliveries. Told my building manager and office receptionist not to accept anything unexpected. Then, Madison tried the ambush. Ryan walked into my office one afternoon holding his phone. "You're not going to believe this," he said. I looked up from my monitor. What now? Madison messaged me on LinkedIn. I blinked. What? She says she wants to apologize to you in person. I laughed once. Not because it was funny. Because it was predictable. Read it. Ryan handed me the phone. Madison's message sounded carefully scripted. Hey Ryan, I know Elena hates me right now, but I genuinely feel terrible about my part in everything. I'd love to meet her for coffee and apologize face to face. No Caleb, no drama, just closure. Closure. People who want closure do not recruit witnesses through LinkedIn. It's a setup, I said immediately. You think? She wants me somewhere public so they can film it. Ryan frowned. You really think they'd go that far? They already did. 2 days later, Madison messaged me directly from a new account. Elena, please, just 30 minutes. Starbucks on West End. Your choice of time. No cameras, I swear. No cameras.
Specific location.
Specific wording. Specific reassurance. Which meant cameras were absolutely involved. I Googled the Starbucks. Small.
Cramped.
Perfect for hidden filming angles. Ryan checked Madison's recent follows from his burner account. One of them was a TikTok creator known for public confrontation videos. There it was. They wanted redemption content. Caleb's cruel ex refuses apology. Emotionally unstable engineer attacks grieving boyfriend's friend. Something dramatic enough to erase what actually happened. I replied once. Not interested in being filmed for your redemption arc. Lose my number. Then blocked the account. Saved screenshots. Logged timestamps. The more evidence I collected, the calmer I became. Not happier. Not healed. Just colder. More precise. I installed a ring camera outside my apartment. Changed locks. Added a second deadbolt. Gave management Caleb's photo with strict instructions. If he shows up, I told them, do not let him in. The manager frowned. Protective order situation? Not yet, I said, but we may get there. Weeks passed. Late April became May. Work improved. Sleep returned in fragments. I started cooking again. Started remembering what quiet felt like. And then Violet reached out. The message appeared Tuesday morning through LinkedIn. Elena, it's Violet. I know you probably don't want to hear from anyone connected to Caleb, but I need to talk to you. It's important. Can we meet somewhere public? I stared at the message for a long time. Violet had always been kind to me. Quiet.
Observant.
The only person at family dinners who ever asked how my projects were going. Still, she was Caleb's sister. This could be another trap. But something about the wording felt different. No performance. No manipulation. Just nervous honesty. Coffee, I finally replied. Tomorrow, noon, 5th Avenue. Her response came instantly. Thank you. Violet arrived early. Corner table. Hands wrapped tightly around a coffee cup. Dark circles under her eyes. She looked like someone carrying too much alone. Thanks for meeting me, she said softly. What's this about? Instead of answering, she unlocked her phone. Then slid it across the table toward me. At the top of the screen was a group chat title. Operation Upgrade. My chest tightened immediately. Read it, Violet whispered. I started scrolling. And within 30 seconds, I realized the humiliation at Husk had never been spontaneous. It had been planned. Every second of it. The first message in the group chat was dated almost 3 months before the proposal dinner. Okay, if Elena actually proposes at the birthday dinner, we have to make this iconic. Underneath it, Madison reacted with laughing emojis. Then Riley added, please tell me someone's recording her face when Caleb shuts it down. My stomach turned cold. I kept scrolling. Message after message. Plans. Timing. Roles. Who would speak first? Who would film? Who would laugh? Who would pretend to comfort me afterward? It was all there. Every single moment at Husk had been choreographed like a stage performance. Jordan, I'll bait her into pulling out the ring. I can fake surprise, LOL. I'll hit her with the, what do you bring to the table line? I'll play sympathetic so nobody thinks we're being too mean. Then Caleb himself. Make sure nobody posts until I approve clips. I want this handled carefully. I stopped breathing for a second. Not because he had betrayed me. That part I already knew. But because of how calm he sounded.
Calculated.
Like he was directing content instead of destroying someone who loved him. Violet watched my face carefully from across the table. I'm sorry, she whispered. I looked up slowly. How long did you know? I knew something was wrong, she admitted. But I didn't know how bad it was until after dinner. Jordan accidentally left her iPad open during brunch last week. Why show me this now? Her eyes lowered. Because it keeps getting worse. I kept scrolling. And then I found another name. Kendra. Kendra Vale. At first I thought it was random. Then I saw Caleb's messages. Kendra says she can't go public until things with Elena are finished. My fingers froze against the screen. Another message. Once the proposal disaster happens, Elena will leave on her own. Then I can move forward without looking like the villain. The coffee shop suddenly felt too warm. Kendra, I said quietly. Violet nodded. His ex-girlfriend. I stared at her. What? They started talking again 2 months before the proposal. The room tilted slightly. Not because Caleb cheated. At that point, betrayal almost felt expected. Number. What shattered something inside me was the realization that the proposal humiliation had not been about embarrassment. It had been an exit strategy. A public execution designed to make me disappear cleanly from his life while protecting his image. I kept reading. Jordan. Honestly, Kendra's hotter anyway. And richer. Elena was always temporary. We all knew that. Then Caleb again. Exactly. Kendra fits the future I actually want. I looked away from the phone. For a moment, I genuinely thought I might throw up. Violet reached across the table instinctively. Elena. I pulled back before she could touch my hand. Not because I blamed her. Because I suddenly could not handle kindness. How long were they together? I don't know exactly, Violet said quietly. But I know he was seeing her while living with you. I laughed once.
Sharp.
Broken. Wow. That tiny word carried 3.5 years inside it. Violet swallowed hard. There's more. I looked back at the screen. Messages about me. My work. My apartment. My truck. The way I dressed. The fact I brought homemade lunches sometimes instead of ordering expensive takeout. Every insecurity Caleb ever pretended to soothe had apparently become entertainment for his friends. Then came the final message that made my chest go numb. Caleb, once this is over, she'll probably disappear quietly. Elena's too proud to make a scene. Jordan replied immediately. Perfect. Cleaner for everyone. Cleaner for everyone. Like I was a stain they planned to remove. I slowly locked the phone and slid it back to Violet. The cafe noise returned all at once. Espresso machines. Chairs scraping. People laughing somewhere near the window. Normal life continuing, while mine rearranged itself again. Why are you helping me? I asked finally. Violet looked exhausted. Because I'm tired of watching my family destroy people. There was no drama in her voice. Only truth. I watched Caleb manipulate people my whole life, she continued. I watched my mother protect him no matter what he did. And every time someone got hurt, everyone pretended it was complicated instead of admitting he was cruel. She hesitated. Especially when Kendra came back. That caught my attention immediately. What do you mean? Violet stared down at her coffee. Kendra dumped him last week. I blinked. What? She saw the video from the restaurant after it spread outside their friend group. She panicked, said she couldn't be associated with someone involved in that kind of public humiliation. A strange, hollow feeling opened inside me. So he destroyed our relationship for someone who already left him? Violet nodded slowly. And now he wants you back. I almost laughed again. Not because it was funny. Because it was insane. He's been telling everyone the proposal was a misunderstanding, Violet continued. That you overreacted. That once you calm down, things will go back to normal. Normal, I repeated softly. His clients are dropping him, she added. A few local businesses ended contracts after the restaurant story started circulating wider online. Jordan's videos leaked outside their circle. People think Caleb's cruel. He is cruel. I know. For the first time, anger flashed across Violet's face. Real anger. My mother is trying to do damage control, but it's not working anymore. Caleb's reputation is collapsing, and Diane thinks if he gets you back, everyone will forgive him. I leaned back slowly. Everything suddenly made sense. The gifts. The fake apologies. The burner numbers. The manipulation. This was not about love. It was about image recovery. Caleb did not miss me. He missed stability. He missed the person who quietly paid 60% of the rent while making him look emotionally grounded. You can send me the screenshots, I said finally. Violet nodded immediately. I already exported everything. Within seconds, my phone buzzed. Hundreds of screenshots. Months of messages.
Affair evidence. Premeditation.
Plans.
Insults. Mockery. Proof.
More proof than I had even hoped for. If Caleb finds out you gave me this, He'll lose his mind, Violet finished quietly. I know. Then why risk it? She looked at me for a long moment. Because nobody ever helped the people he hurt before. That sentence stayed with me long after she left. I sat in my truck afterward, rereading screenshots until my hands hurt from gripping the steering wheel. 3.5 years. Reduced to strategy. Reduced to optics. Reduced to operation upgrade. Finally, I called Ryan. I need a witness. 30 minutes later, he sat across from me at my apartment kitchen table, scrolling through the exported files on my laptop. His face changed slowly as he read.
Confusion. Disbelief. Disgust.
Holy hell, he muttered finally.
Yeah.
They planned everything.
I know.
And he was cheating with his ex the whole time? Apparently. Ryan leaned back heavily. This is psychotic. The apartment fell silent. Then he looked at me carefully. What are you gonna do? I already knew the answer. Not emotionally. Legally. I'm done reacting, I said quietly. Now I document. Ryan nodded immediately. Good. We drafted a witness statement that same night. Ryan confirmed he personally reviewed the messages and screenshots in my presence. Dated. Signed. Photographed for metadata. Everything methodical. Everything precise. Because emotions fade. Evidence does not. The next morning, I met with a lawyer recommended by my father's colleague. Her office overlooked downtown Nashville.
Minimalist furniture.
Sharp eyes. Name, Andrea Whitmore. She read in silence for almost 20 minutes. The only sound was paper turning. Finally, she removed her glasses. Well, she said carefully, your ex-boyfriend is either incredibly arrogant or incredibly stupid. Probably both. That earned the first tiny smile I had managed in weeks. Andrea tapped the screenshots lightly. You have evidence of coordinated humiliation, online harassment, workplace interference, repeated unwanted contact, and possible stalking behavior. She looked directly at me. You have an extremely strong case for a protective order. I exhaled slowly. I don't want money. Most people don't at first. No, I said firmly. I just want him to leave me alone. Andrea studied me for a moment. Then we move fast. She explained everything carefully. Temporary order first. No direct or indirect contact. No third-party harassment. Documentation for every violation. And Elena? Yeah? When he gets served, expect escalation. I frowned slightly. What kind of escalation? The kind desperate people always choose when control disappears. Her voice stayed calm. Your ex-boyfriend built his identity around managing perception. Once legal consequences begin, he'll panic. She was right. The paperwork was filed on Friday. Court date scheduled for 2 weeks later. Temporary order activated immediately upon service. I spent the weekend preparing. Passwords changed again. Ring camera checked twice daily. Building management updated. Work notified. Parents informed. Copies of everything stored in cloud backups and external drives. Monday morning, Andrea called. He's been served. I closed my eyes briefly. How'd he take it? The process server said Caleb opened the door, read the paperwork, and started screaming. That image almost felt surreal. Beautiful, charismatic Caleb Monroe. The man who controlled rooms. The man who laughed while humiliating me in public. Screaming on his parents' front porch because consequences finally arrived. Diane apparently came outside yelling about harassment, Andrea continued dryly. The process server documented everything. Good. By Monday afternoon, my Ring camera caught the first violation. Caleb standing outside my apartment building trying to get buzzed in. The building manager denied him immediately. Then the intercom crackled. Elena! I froze in my kitchen. His voice sounded frantic. We need to talk about this protective order thing. This is insane. I did not answer. Please, just let me explain what really happened. The building manager warned him twice. Caleb refused to leave. Police arrived 10 minutes later. He sat in the lobby crying dramatically for anyone willing to watch. Claimed I was harassing him. Claimed he was the victim. The officers reviewed footage. Then escorted him off property with an official warning. First violation on record. Tuesday got worse. My office receptionist called down around noon. Elena? Yes? There's a man here asking for you. Cold dread slid through me immediately. What man? He says his name is Caleb. Of course he did. Security was already on the way when I reached the lobby. Caleb turned the second he saw me, and instantly switched into performance mode. Elena, he breathed, eyes glossy. Please, we need to talk. I stopped several feet away. Phone already recording inside my pocket. You need to leave. This was a mistake, he continued desperately. I was hurt, and I said things I shouldn't have, but we can fix this. Fix this. Like the proposal had been an argument instead of a calculated demolition. You were served with a protective order, I said evenly. You're violating it. His face tightened briefly before softening again. That's ridiculous. I'm just trying to talk to my girlfriend. Ex-girlfriend. Security guards appeared behind him. One stepped forward immediately. Sir, you need to leave the building. Caleb ignored him completely. Elena, please. You know me. You know I didn't mean any of that. I stared at him, and for the first time since Husk, I felt absolutely nothing. No longing. No grief. No hope. Just clarity. You already meant it long before you said it, I replied quietly. Security escorted him outside while he kept trying to talk over his shoulder. I filed another report before leaving work. Second violation. Wednesday stayed quiet. Too quiet. Then, at 9:14 that night, my phone rang from another unknown number. I almost ignored it. Almost. But something told me to answer. Hello? A woman inhaled shakily on the other end. Elena, Riley said, I think Caleb's losing control. For a second, I genuinely thought I had misheard her. Riley never called unless there was something in it for Riley. She was the type of person who treated emotional crises like market fluctuations. Unfortunate, but only important if they threatened her portfolio. So hearing fear in her voice immediately put me on alert. What do you want? I asked. Silence. Then, I'm out. I leaned back slowly against my kitchen counter. What does that mean? It means I deleted the group chat. I told Jordan to stop contacting me, and I told Caleb not to involve me in whatever this is turning into. Interesting. Not guilt.
Self-preservation.
What changed? I asked. My firm got contacted this morning. That caught my attention. By who? I don't know, Riley admitted quickly. Some anonymous complaint asking whether I was involved in online harassment and coordinated defamation. I closed my eyes briefly.
Consequences.
Finally. And now? I asked calmly. Now I'm protecting myself. There it was. The real reason. Not remorse. Fear. I have licenses, Elena, she continued rapidly. If this becomes public, not just social media gossip, it could affect my career. You should have thought about that before humiliating me for entertainment. I know. She sounded genuinely shaken now. I'm not calling to fight. I'm calling because Caleb's spiraling. My grip tightened around the phone. What does that mean exactly? Another pause. Then, he thinks if he fixes the narrative, he fixes everything. Cold unease crept up my spine. What has he done? Nothing illegal yet, Riley said carefully. But Diane keeps telling him you'll come back once you calm down. Jordan keeps saying the internet will move on if you publicly forgive him. Paige thinks this is all rooted in unresolved attachment issues. I almost laughed at that. Paige diagnosing stalking like it was astrology. And Madison? I asked. Madison just wants content. That sounded accurate. Riley exhaled shakily. Look, I'm emailing my lawyer copies of everything I still have. If you need a notarized statement about the planning, I'll provide one. Why help me now? Because Caleb's going to drag everyone down with him. Honest. Finally. Send it, I said. 2 days later, Andrea received Riley's notarized statement. 4 pages.
Detailed. Specific.
Every role confirmed. Operation Upgrade. The affair with Kendra. The deliberate setup at Husk. Riley did not do it because she cared about me. But honestly, I no longer needed people to care. I only needed facts. The friend group started fracturing almost immediately afterward. Jordan disappeared from social media for 3 days. Madison privated her accounts. Paige posted vague quotes about emotional healing and toxic cycles. Nobody believed them anymore. Meanwhile, Caleb kept escalating. Thursday afternoon, my building manager called. Elena, he said carefully, we have a situation. I sat up immediately. What kind of situation? Your ex-boyfriend is here. My stomach hardened instantly. With his mother. Of course, Diane came too. And? I asked. They're demanding to speak with you. Did you let them in? No. Good. The manager hesitated. They have an envelope. They say it's important. I already knew it was manipulation. What are they doing now? Arguing with security. I grabbed my keys immediately. Call the police, I said. I'm on my way. By the time I arrived, 2 officers were already in the lobby speaking with Diane and Caleb. Caleb looked exhausted. Not sad. Not remorseful. Exhausted the way people look when reality stops cooperating with their self-image. Diane, meanwhile, looked furious. The second she saw me, her face twisted. There she is, she snapped dramatically. The victim. One officer turned toward me. Ma'am, are you Elena Hart? Yes. These individuals claim they're attempting to return property. I don't want anything from them. Caleb stepped forward immediately, holding a sealed envelope. Elena, please, just take this. Do not approach me. His expression cracked slightly. I'm trying to fix this. No, I replied evenly. You're trying to control fallout. The officer extended a hand toward Caleb. Sir, give me the envelope. Caleb hesitated. Diane stepped in instantly. This is absurd, she snapped at the officers. My son is trying to repair a misunderstanding, and she's acting like he committed a crime. He violated a protective order twice already, I said calmly. Diane glared at me with open hatred. You destroyed his life. The irony nearly took my breath away. The officer opened the envelope carefully. Inside was a cashier's check. $10,000. And a handwritten note. I recognized Diane's handwriting immediately. For the ring in your trouble. In exchange, we need you to publicly clarify that the restaurant incident was a mutual misunderstanding. Caleb's career depends on fixing his reputation. This is a fair trade. I stared at the note. Then at Diane. Fair trade, I repeated softly. She lifted her chin. You humiliated him publicly. I actually smiled. Not because it was funny. Because the delusion had become unbelievable. You planned my humiliation for months, I said quietly. You all just got upset because the consequences lasted longer than the performance. Diane's face flushed red. That's not what happened. I looked directly at the officer. I'd like this documented as another violation. Caleb's eyes widened immediately. Elena, come on. You were ordered not to contact me, directly or indirectly. I just wanted to apologize. No, I corrected calmly. You wanted damage control. The officer nodded toward Caleb. Sir, you've already been warned previously. This will be added to the report. Diane exploded. This is insane! She's vindictive! She's trying to ruin him because he rejected her. The lobby went completely silent. Security guards stared openly now. One of the officers turned sharply toward Diane. Ma'am, lower your voice. She trapped my son! I almost pitied Greg suddenly. Almost. The officers escorted both of them outside. Before leaving, Caleb turned back toward me one last time. Elena, please. For half a second, I saw panic underneath the charm. Real panic. Because none of his old tools worked anymore. Not manipulation. Not guilt. Not performance. Nothing. After they left, I photographed the check and note immediately before placing them into a plastic evidence sleeve Andrea had given me. Paperwork first. Anger later. That night, another unexpected call came in. Rachel. The server from Husk. Elena? She asked nervously. Yes? I thought you should know something. I straightened immediately. What happened? The restaurant manager got contacted yesterday. Every nerve in my body sharpened. Contacted by who? He didn't say specifically, but someone requested the security footage from your proposal dinner be deleted. Ice slid down my spine. What? They claimed it was a privacy issue. Of course they did. Because if the footage vanished, the story became opinion instead of evidence. Did they delete it? I asked carefully. No, Rachel said quickly. Management policy requires footage retention for 90 days. Relief hit so hard I had to sit down. But someone definitely wanted it gone, she added quietly. I stared out my apartment window at the Nashville skyline glowing in the dark. Even now, even after everything, they were still trying to erase what happened, instead of admitting it. Thank you for telling me, I said sincerely. You were kind to me that night, Rachel replied softly. People remember things like that. After we hung up, I immediately called Andrea. She requested a preservation copy of the footage within the hour. Another layer of evidence secured. The next morning brought something even worse. An email. Unknown sender. Subject line, we need to talk. I opened it carefully. It was from Jordan. Daniel, sorry, Elena, habit. I know things got messy, but I have the full video from the proposal dinner. Multiple angles, clear audio, everything. My pulse slowed dangerously. Jordan continued. I'm willing to delete it permanently and make sure nobody else posts clips, but only if you agree to stop escalating things legally. Drop the protective order. Publicly state the dinner was a misunderstanding. Say emotions were high on both sides. Do that and the footage disappears forever. Otherwise, TikTok gets everything. You have 48 hours. I reread the email twice. Not because I was shocked, because I wanted to fully appreciate how stupid blackmail looks when typed out clearly. I forwarded the message to Andrea immediately. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. That, she said calmly, is extortion. I figured. She just handed us another charge. By that afternoon, a detective had contacted Jordan directly. Whatever he told her must have terrified her. Because within hours, her TikTok disappeared. Instagram, gone. Every public account, wiped clean. For the first time since Husk, I slept more than 5 hours straight. The hearing arrived on a Wednesday morning. I wore a charcoal suit. Minimal makeup. Hair tied back. Not because appearances mattered. Because I wanted to feel like myself again. Caleb arrived with Diane, Greg, and a lawyer wearing a smile too polished to be sincere. He looked thinner.
Paler.
But still handsome enough that strangers would probably assume he was harmless. That was the problem with people like Caleb. Cruelty rarely announces itself correctly. Andrea organized our evidence carefully before proceedings began. Screenshots. Witness statements. Violation reports. The preserved restaurant footage. Riley's notarized affidavit. The courtroom stayed quiet while the judge reviewed everything. Then, finally, the judge looked up at Caleb. Mr. Monroe, she said evenly, did you plan the public rejection of Miss Hart in advance? His lawyer immediately stood. Your Honor. The judge cut him off without looking away from Caleb. I'm asking your client directly. Caleb swallowed. We talked about it, but it wasn't supposed to become this serious. The judge blinked once, slowly. You believed publicly humiliating your partner of over 3 years in front of both families and a restaurant full of strangers would be humorous? Caleb's face tightened. I was overwhelmed. Andrea slid the affair screenshots forward. The judge reviewed them silently, then looked back up. You were also reconnecting romantically with an ex-girlfriend during this time. Caleb said nothing. The silence answered for him. The judge leaned back slightly. I've presided over hundreds of domestic harassment cases, she said calmly. This is one of the more calculated situations I've reviewed. Diane shifted angrily beside him. The judge continued. The temporary protective order is granted permanently for 2 years. Caleb visibly stiffened. No direct or indirect contact. No third-party communication. No workplace visits. No residential visits. No social media contact. 100-yard minimum distance. She paused. Any violation will result in immediate arrest. Then she looked directly at him. Am I understood? Very quietly, Caleb answered. Yes, Your Honor. For the first time since Husk. He looked small. The strange thing about surviving humiliation is that eventually, life starts moving again without asking whether you are ready. Work deadlines returned. Laundry piled up. Traffic still sucked on I-40. People still argued over coffee orders. The world kept going with insulting normalcy while I quietly rebuilt myself inside it. By early June, the hotel project near the airport wrapped successfully. Final inspection passed. No deficiencies. No redesign requests. The next afternoon, Mark called me into his office. I assumed something was wrong. Instead, the partners were waiting for me. And for the first time in months, someone looked at me without pity. Elena, one of them said, smiling slightly, we'd like to offer you the senior engineer position, effective immediately. I blinked. What? Mark grinned openly. You earned it. 20% raise. My own project team. Lead oversight on 2 upcoming developments. Under normal circumstances, I probably would have cried. Instead, I just sat there, stunned, while one clear thought repeated in my head. Caleb tried to destroy my reputation, and somehow I became stronger anyway. After the meeting, Mark stopped me near the hallway. You handled hell better than most people handle inconvenience, he said quietly. I looked down briefly. I just focused on what I could control. Good strategy, he replied. Keep it. I moved into a better apartment in July. Actual security. Covered parking. Bigger kitchen. Enough sunlight to make mornings feel less heavy. The raise made $1,400 a month manageable without stress. For the first time since the proposal disaster, my home started feeling like mine instead of temporary shelter from emotional fallout. Ryan kept dragging me to the gym twice a week. My mother kept pretending not to check whether I was eating enough. And slowly, the sharpest edges inside me stopped bleeding. Then Ryan's wife introduced me to Nathan Brooks. Don't panic, she warned over dinner. He's normal. I laughed for the first time in weeks. A strong selling point. Nathan was a surgical nurse at Vanderbilt. Quiet confidence. Steady voice. No performance. No obsession with appearances. He asked questions and actually listened to the answers. The first time we got coffee, he spent 20 minutes talking about his rescue dog's anxiety medication because he thought I looked stressed and wanted to make me laugh. It worked. By September, things felt almost stable. Work was good. Nathan was easy to breathe around. The protective order held. No surprise visits. No fake apologies. No chaos. Part of me finally started believing the worst was over. Then October arrived. And Violet called. The second I heard her voice, I knew something was wrong. Elena, she said shakily, he's not okay. I sat up immediately on my couch. What happened? Caleb's obsessed again. Cold dread crept slowly through my chest. What does that mean exactly? He thinks there's still a chance you'll come back. I closed my eyes briefly. Violet. My mom keeps encouraging it. she interrupted miserably. She keeps saying you still love him underneath everything, and that if he makes some huge romantic gesture, you'll forgive him. Of course Diane believed that. People like Diane thought consequences were temporary inconveniences for attractive men. What kind of gesture? I asked carefully.
Silence.
Then, I don't know yet, but he's spiraling. I stood and started pacing slowly. Has he contacted you about me? Constantly. My stomach hardened. He keeps asking where you live now, where you work, whether you're serious about Nathan. Nathan. Interesting. So Caleb knew, which meant he was watching more closely than he should have been. I told him nothing, Violet said quickly. But Elena, I'm worried. After we hung up, I immediately called Andrea. She listened carefully, then said the exact thing I already suspected. Stay alert. 3 days later, it happened. Friday evening. Parking garage beneath my office building. I had just finished reviewing suppression diagrams for a hospital expansion project and was halfway to my truck when I saw white fabric near the concrete pillar ahead. At first, my brain genuinely could not process what I was looking at. Then Caleb stepped fully into view, wearing a white suit, holding flowers. My entire body went cold. For one surreal second, it looked like a wedding scene from a movie. Then I saw his face. Too bright. Too desperate. Too unstable. Elena, he said breathlessly, smiling too wide. I've been waiting for you. I stopped walking immediately. About 15 feet separated us. My phone was already in my hand before I consciously realized I had grabbed it. Recording. Always recording now. You need to leave, I said calmly. I know about Nathan. There it was.
Control. Possession. Panic.
You're violating a protective order. I had to see you. He stepped closer. I stepped back instantly. And that was when I realized something terrifying. He was not embarrassed. Not anymore. Humiliation had burned away whatever pride he used to have. What remained was obsession. I've been thinking about everything, he said rapidly, about what I lost. His eyes were glassy. You were right, Elena. We belong together. No. Yes, he insisted desperately. I understand now. I do. He lifted the flowers slightly, like they meant something sacred. We should get married. I stared at him. This man publicly destroyed me in front of strangers, cheated on me, tried to ruin my career, violated a court order multiple times. And now he stood in a parking garage, pretending love had rewritten history. Caleb, I said quietly, leave. No, listen to me first. He smiled suddenly, a frightening smile. I'm saying yes. Every hair on my arms rose instantly. What? To your proposal. His voice cracked emotionally. I'm saying yes, now. For one horrifying second, I could not speak. Then he took another step toward me. We can fix everything, he rushed out. People will see we're meant to be together. Once we get back together, all the rumors stop. My clients come back. Everything goes back to normal. There it was. Not love.
Reputation management.
Again. Always. You don't love me, I said evenly. Yes, I do. No, you need me to repair your image. His expression twisted. That's not fair. Fair? I repeated softly. You planned my humiliation for months. That was a mistake. No, I corrected calmly. It was a decision. Coworkers were starting to notice now. A security guard appeared near the elevator entrance. Caleb's breathing became uneven. You don't understand, he said desperately. Kendra left. Everyone left. My life fell apart. And somehow, he still thought that was my responsibility to fix. You did that to yourself. Tears filled his eyes instantly. I know, he whispered. That's why I need another chance. I almost pitied him then. Almost. Because underneath the manipulation and vanity and cruelty, He genuinely could not understand why consequences remained after apologies began. "Please," he begged, "I'll do anything." "You already did everything." The security guard approached carefully. "Ma'am, are you okay?" "Yes," I answered immediately. "This man is violating an active protective order." Caleb spun toward the guard angrily. "I'm talking to my fiancé."
Ex-fiancé. Imaginary fiancé.
Whatever version helped him survive reality. The guard immediately touched his radio. "Sir, you need to leave the property." "I'm not leaving until she answers me." My pulse slowed instead of rising. That surprised me. Months ago, this would have destroyed me emotionally. Now, I just felt tired. "Caleb," I said quietly, "I already answered you at Husk." His face crumpled. "No." "Yes." "You proposed because you loved me. And you humiliated me because you thought you'd never face consequences." The distant sound of police sirens echoed faintly through the garage. Panic flashed across his face immediately. "Elena, please." I said nothing. "You can't seriously want me arrested over this." I looked directly at him. "You still think this is happening to you instead of because of you." The sirens got louder. 2 patrol cars entered the garage moments later. 4 officers stepped out quickly. One recognized me immediately from previous reports. "Ms. Hart?" I nodded once. "He violated the order again. I have video." The officer turned toward Caleb. "Sir, step away from her, now." Everything changed on Caleb's face in that moment. The performance shattered. Fear replaced it. "No, wait," he stammered. "This is a misunderstanding. We're working things out." "We are not," I said calmly. The officer requested his identification, while another reviewed the order details. Caleb started crying. Actual crying. I was just trying to fix things. One officer looked at him flatly. "By stalking her at work?" "I'm not stalking her." "You violated this order multiple times already." The security guard handed officers his own incident statement. 2 coworkers confirmed witnessing everything. And suddenly, Caleb realized this was real. Again. Not social media. Not performance. Not narrative. Reality. He backed away abruptly. Then ran. 3 steps. That was all he got. 2 officers caught him almost instantly. Flowers hit the concrete floor and scattered across the garage. Caleb started screaming while they cuffed him. "You're ruining my life!" The words echoed wildly off the concrete walls. One officer guided him toward the cruiser while reading his rights. He twisted once, trying to look back at me. "Elena, please!" I stood completely still. No tears. No rage. Nothing left to break. The cruiser doors slammed shut. Silence returned slowly afterward. One officer approached me carefully. "We'll need a formal statement tomorrow, but this is a clear violation." I nodded. "Okay." He's likely facing criminal penalties now. I looked toward the scattered flowers lying crushed across the parking garage floor. I just wanted him to leave me alone. The officer's expression softened slightly. "After this," he said quietly, "I think he finally will." Maybe. Maybe not. Obsession rarely ends gracefully. But this part did. The violation hearing happened 2 weeks later. Caleb pleaded guilty. 6 months probation. Mandatory psychological evaluation. Protective order extended from 2 years to 5. The judge was not sympathetic. "Mental health struggles do not excuse stalking," she said sharply. "You had every opportunity to comply with this order." Greg stopped me outside the courtroom afterward. For the first time since I met him, he looked directly at me without avoiding eye contact. "I should have said something that night at the restaurant," he admitted quietly. I said nothing. I knew it was wrong. "Yes," I replied, "you did." Pain crossed his face immediately. But truth hurts more when it arrives late. A week later, Diane tried one final attack. She found Nathan through social media and sent him a message warning him that I was emotionally manipulative and unstable. Andrea responded with a cease and desist letter so aggressive it practically caught fire digitally. Diane never contacted either of us again. Life moved forward after that. The hotel project won an engineering award. I kept my promotion. Nathan stayed gentle. Ryan stayed loyal. Violet moved out and cut ties with her family entirely. And Caleb? He moved to Atlanta quietly after probation started. Most people stopped mentioning him within months. Sometimes I still think about Husk. About the laughter. About the ring box clicking shut. About walking out while everyone stared. Back then, it felt like my life was ending. Now I understand something different. That night did not ruin my future. It revealed it. Because the worst thing Caleb Monroe ever did to me was also the thing that saved me from marrying him.